The ground was broken for the new Williams Avenue School in mid-October 1911. But they had to stop the excavation because they discovered a large cache of bones. The workers looked at these bones and they were pretty sure they were not human. On October 31st, 3 men showed up and told the construction foreman that they would remove the bones and take them to be examined. The men worked all day, gathered up all these bones in boxes. No one ever heard or saw from the men again. When the men would leave at the end of the day and come back, much of their work had been undone. Holes that had been left open were filled in. Bricks that had been laid and still left with wet mortar were knocked over. It was as someone was sabotaging their project. Finally, in 1917, the building was completed. After the grand opening, many mysterious things happened in the building and outside the building. Now, to build this building, they had to cut down many, many trees. It was a small forest there. But almost immediately upon the occupancy and opening of the school, the custodians reported strange things going on, strange noises, and they didn't think a whole lot about it until they went up on the top floor and saw scratches in the wall and scratches in the floor. Came back the next day and told their boss about it, and they went up to examine these scratches on the top floor. The scratches were gone. They were no longer there. On October 31st, a few years later, the custodians, the same custodians by the way, were there, and they went up on the floor because they heard scratching noises, and the scratches had reappeared. And they took photographs of them. But once again, when they came back in the next day, the scratches were gone. It was only on the top floor, only outside of room 23, 25, and 22. When the men had the photographs developed, there was nothing on them. There was no sign of scratches, nothing. There was just the floor. On October 31st, 1921, a group of boys, young boys, 8th graders at the school, were messing around. They had snuck out that night, right before midnight. They were right in front of the school when all the lights went on in the school. And they looked up on the top floor in the windows of room 23, and there were 3 faces peering out at them. And behind them, they could see 2 red dots, almost like the eyes of some evil creature behind these men. A fog came over the building, and at the stroke of midnight, the lights went off, the fog disappeared. There had been many legends passed down from the Native Americans who lived in Norwood about strange creatures in the woods who had red eyes and made strange noises. And maybe the bones that were removed may have been from some of these creatures. Maybe they had buried their dead. Now, no one gave a whole lot of thought to it until 1931. Notice a 10-year pattern here. When on October 31st, Halloween night, just before midnight, the same thing occurred. The front door suddenly came open to the building. They couldn't tell whether it was a human or not, but something was standing in the door. When they went across the street, everything was dark, the door was shut as if nothing had happened. Once again, between 1931 and 1941, custodians reported the strange sights. The scratches reappeared from time to time, but something else had appeared. They had laid down a new linoleum floor on the 2nd floor. Somehow or another, a footprint was embedded in this linoleum. It was a huge footprint. Someone had come in and measured and said if they were wearing a shoe, it would be a size 18 or 19. My first experience with this was 1981. I decided to stand out across the building with a few people and have a camera ready. We waited. And then just before midnight, all the lights went on in the building. While we were looking up there, we could tell that these men were in agony. And one of the people who was there with me was something of a lip reader, and he could tell that these people were saying, "Help me." Everything disappeared. As the fog came over, the lights went out. We saw the door being opened. We took some photographs of what was at the door. We got our film developed the next day. There was nothing on the film. not even the building. We came back the next night and took the same photographs from the same place, using the same cameras, with the same type of film, and everything was perfect. 2001, we were set up again. The lights went on, the faces showed up, nothing appeared on our film. We came back the next night, took it from the same spot, everything was fine. We think the 3 men that were up in the window pleading for help may have been the 3 men who had removed the bones. Every 10th anniversary of them removing the bones, they would come back, or they were forced back. This is 2011. The 10-year cycle should repeat itself.
Every place I've worked, there's always been some sort of ghost story.
You know, I've heard the story since I started working here, and I've worked with people that claim that they have heard things and seen things.
People, you know, are interested in ghosts, so they make up stories about how this place is haunted or that place is haunted, and they come up with some scheme as to why somebody that used to work there or something was haunting the place.
I mentioned it to my boss, and he said there were stories that he heard that Ken had told him.
Many of us have had our own little encounters.
Well, when I first started working here, my coworkers would tell me that the studio was haunted.
I was the only one here every morning, and I would have occasion to go into the studio because the kids would come in there to do their announcements, and there were different things I had to take care of in there. And every once in a while, when I would go in, I'd notice the curtains that go around the studio. They would be moving.
We have no windows in here. There's a little breeze blowing the curtain, it seems.
And I thought maybe it's just air.
It's easy to just blame them on the airflow coming through here, but a lot of times there isn't any. But that's so weird in there because it was built to be a studio. There shouldn't be any sound leaking through.
I work here on Saturdays by myself, and I'm the only one in the building because it's a school building. There's no one else here. But a lot of times I'll hear really weird sounds.
They're unexplained. They come from out of nowhere.
You know what? Working in here late, I'd be in the office, and I've heard like big, banging noises in the studio area, and I thought there was someone back there, and then I would go back there, and there'd be nothing back there.
I would go back to use the microwave to fix my food, and you have to walk through the studio to get there, and I would start hearing things, just eerie kind of sounds. The sounds are just creepy.
It involved a death when the school was being built. It involved a death when the school was being built, of an electrician or something.
When this building was built back in 1972, we were at the administration building, and we would always come over here and check on the building and how it was coming along, in our TV studio especially. One day we showed up, and the ambulance was out front, and we didn't think a whole lot of it, and we came inside and came upstairs to where the studio was being built, and the stretcher was there, and a man was laying on it, and he looked okay. They had him covered up, not his head, so we didn't think there was too much wrong, and they left with him, and we came on in and examined the studio, and I looked around, and we saw an electrician's hat, a hard hat, the type that they wear on the construction site. And we thought, well, maybe this belongs to the man they just took to the hospital. So we put it aside, and later on we found out the man died at the hospital.
But occasionally you'll hear a man's voice.
Like a construction foreman giving orders.
It's always a man's voice.
We came back a few weeks later, and still looking at the studio, how it was coming along. That hat was here. It was laying in the same place that we saw it before. So we thought, well, maybe somebody's, found it, threw it back in here. So we put it away again. And this happened third time. The hat kept reappearing. Well, eventually the studio and everything was built, and we moved in and running things normally. The TV studio was up and running. One day I came to work, the hat is here again.
Jamie and I work in the same area, so sometimes when I'm here by myself, I just sense something, like I'm being watched.
I'll be in the office by myself and be sitting here at my desk, and I'll feel like someone comes up and, taps me on the shoulder, and I'll turn around, and of course there's no one here because everyone works during the week.
I feel this cold kind of chill, and it's not from the air conditioning or anything, because sometimes it's in the winter when the heat should be on, and it's just like this coldness kind of permeates the air around you, and it's a very chilling feeling.
I know no one else is here, but I just feel this weird presence. That's the only way I can describe it, is like a presence of some kind.
I was sitting here at my desk, and we have monitors here in the office that allow us to see in different editing bays and in our studio as well. And I saw, it looked like out of the corner of my eye when I looked up at it to see what was going on in those areas. And so I looked again, and I didn't see any figures, so I just ignored it. And then a half an hour later I looked again, and I saw a figure looked like it was running across again.
Sometimes in the studio, there will be weird shadows.
And I saw shadows, and I saw the lights also moving. And I thought that was odd, because I just thought they're high, they're 25, 30 feet up. And it scared me a little bit, but I thought that's silly.
They're still there, and they're just unexplained shadows.
So every once in a while, I do see and hear things in there. I can't explain it. I don't know who it is. There's no one talking to me. There are no desks lifting up or nothing else.
That's kind of strange.